In the dark, frigid skies above Lockerbie, Scotland on December 21st, 1988, a chilling scene unfolded that would forever stain the annals of aviation history. Pan Am Flight 103, a routine transatlantic voyage from London to New York, became the unwitting victim of a sinister plot. What happened and who was found responsible? Watch the video to find out. On the fateful evening of December 21st, 1988, Pan Am Flight 103, a Boeing 747 aircraft bound for New York City from London, tragically met its demise in one of the most infamous incidents in aviation history. At approximately 7:12 p.m., while cruising at an altitude of around 31,000 feet, 9,500 meters, and preparing for the transatlantic leg of its journey, the aircraft was ripped apart by a devastating explosion over the small town of Lockerbie, Scotland. The catastrophic explosion, orchestrated with the use of the virtually undetectable plastic explosive Semtex, was ingeniously concealed within a cassette player, nestled discreetly within a commonplace suitcase, resulting in the loss of all 259 passengers and crew members on board. The devastation, however, extended beyond the confines of the aircraft, as falling wreckage indiscriminately destroyed 21 residential properties and claimed the lives of an additional 11 individuals on the ground. In the wake of this unprecedented tragedy, grief and shock reverberated around the world as the full extent of the loss became apparent. Families and loved ones were left to grapple with unimaginable sorrow, while communities in Lockerbie and beyond were thrust into mourning as they came to terms with the sudden and senseless loss of innocent lives. The investigation into the bombing of Pan Am Flight 103 launched one of the most extensive and exhaustive probes in aviation history, spanning years and involving multiple international agencies. Ultimately, the painstaking efforts of investigators led to the identification and prosecution of those responsible for the heinous act, though the scars left by the tragedy would endure for generations to come. Although the passengers aboard the plane came from 21 countries, the majority of them were Americans, and the attack increased terrorism fears in the United States. Investigators believed that a Libyan intelligence agent was responsible for the bombing. Many speculated that the attack had been retaliation for a 1986 U.S. bombing campaign against Libya's capital city, Tripoli. Libyan leader Muammar al-Gaddafi refused to turn over the two suspects. As a result, the United States and the United Nations Security Council imposed economic sanctions against Libya. In 1998, Gaddafi finally accepted a proposal to extradite the men. In 2001, after an investigation that involved interviewing 15,000 people and examining 180,000 pieces of evidence, Abdelbaset Ali Mohammed was convicted of the bombing and sentenced to 20, later 27 years in prison. The other man, Lamine Khalifa Fima, was acquitted. The Libyan government eventually agreed to pay damages to the families of the victims of the attack. Educated in both the United States and Britain during the 1970s, Megrahi became fluent in English, a skill that would later play a significant role in his life. In the 1980s, he married and settled with his wife in the suburbs of Tripoli, where they raised 5 children. By 1988, Megrahi had ascended to the position of Chief of Security for Libyan Arab Airlines, LAA, a role that would come under intense scrutiny in the aftermath of the tragic events of December 21st, 1988. The investigation into the bombing quickly led authorities to uncover a web of connections pointing towards Megrahi. Evidence emerged that clothing scraps found with the remains of the bomb were traced back to a shop in Malta, where Megrahi was identified as having purchased the items. Additionally, his possession of multiple false passports and frequent travel between Malta and Zurich, Switzerland, where the bomb's timing device was sourced, raised suspicions about his involvement with Libyan intelligence services. In the tumultuous aftermath of the horrific bombing of Pan Am Flight 103 in 1988, international efforts to bring the perpetrators to justice were fraught with challenges and obstacles. The road to accountability was fraught with hurdles. Initially, the Libyan government staunchly resisted extraditing the suspects to face trial in the United States or Britain, prompting years of arduous diplomatic negotiations and pressure from the international community, particularly facilitated by the United Nations. Despite the steadfast resistance, a breakthrough occurred when Libya ultimately yielded to mounting diplomatic pressure and surrendered the suspects to the United Nations custody in April 1999. This significant concession marked a pivotal moment in the pursuit of justice for the victims of Flight 103, prompting the suspension of certain sanctions against Libya and paving the way for a trial to commence. The subsequent trial, which commenced in May 2000, unfolded on Dutch soil under the jurisdiction of Scottish law, lasting a grueling 8 months. Amidst painstaking legal proceedings and a barrage of evidence, Megrahi was ultimately convicted on January 31, 2001, while his co-defendant FEMA was acquitted of all charges. However, the conclusion of the trial did not mark the end of the protracted legal saga. Megrahi's subsequent appeal in March 2002 proved unsuccessful, but it was in 2009 that the Lockerbie case returned to the forefront of international attention. Despite the passage of decades, the scars of the Lockerbie tragedy remain etched in the collective memory. The quest for justice, closure, and accountability continues to drive efforts to unravel the complexities of this heinous act of terrorism. Decades may have passed, but the legacy of Pan Am Flight 103 endures as a solemn reminder of the human cost of terrorism and the resilience of those affected. The legacy of Abdelbaset Ali Mohammed al-Megrahi remains intertwined with the complex narratives of terrorism, justice, and diplomacy. His role in the Lockerbie bombing continues to elicit debate and reflection on the nature of accountability and the pursuit of truth in the face of profound tragedy. In 2009, Megrahi, who had been diagnosed with terminal cancer, was released from prison in Scotland on compassionate grounds and allowed to return to Libya. The United States strongly disagreed with the Scottish government's decision. The release of Megrahi not only reopened old wounds, but also underscored the enduring complexities and moral dilemmas inherent in the pursuit of justice in cases of terrorism. Despite the passage of time, the Lockerbie tragedy remains a haunting reminder of the fragility of human life and the relentless pursuit of truth and accountability in the face of unspeakable horror. In July 2010, an investigation spurred by U.S. senators revealed that oil company BP had lobbied for a prisoner transfer agreement between the United Kingdom and Libya. Although both BP and the UK government denied that Megrahi was discussed specifically, in 2009, British Justice Minister Jack Straw had stated that BP's business dealings with the Libyan government were a factor in considering his case. In the years following Megrahi's death was recorded in 2012, the Lockerbie case continued to unfold. Additional suspects were identified in 2015, and in 2020, former Libyan intelligence officer Abu Agela Masoud Khair al-Marimi faced criminal charges related to the bombing. When individuals like Abdelbaset al-Megrahi are allowed to walk the streets freely, it raises serious questions about the priorities and efficacy of our justice system. While authorities may focus on minor infractions like cheating students or small vendors, the failure to apprehend and prosecute individuals implicated in heinous crimes undermines public trust and confidence in the rule of law. It's a sobering reminder of the power dynamics at play, where those with influence and resources can manipulate and evade justice, while the rest of society remains bound by the laws they flout. Are we merely puppets, constrained by a legal system that seems powerless against the whims of these criminals? The release of individuals like Megrahi on questionable grounds only deepens the sense of disillusionment and cynicism among the public, fueling speculation and mistrust. Are we truly governed by law, or are we subject to the whims of those who bend and break it without consequence? The lingering uncertainty surrounding Megrahi's fate serves as a poignant reminder of the complexities and shortcomings of our justice system. And who knows if Abdelbaset al-Megrahi is dead? Maybe he's hidden somewhere in the world protected. What are your thoughts? Tell us in the comment section. Your opinion matters. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.